I've fallen in love with a lot of really talented, beautiful, straight women. Like Billy Eichner.
I'm the Candace Cameron of bros.
Oh my God, do you guys remember Straight People?
Yeah, they had a nice run.
Billy, I saw you spoke about kind of expecting more of a pushback from the studio, just based on the context and the screenplay. And I was wondering if there were any moments or jokes or dialogue that specifically you were like, ooh, I hope this makes it.
A lot of it, all of it at the beginning, you know, but I said to Nick, if I'm gonna do it and you want me to do it with you, because he brought the idea to do a rom-com about a gay couple to me, I said it needs to be unapologetic. Like, it needs to be as sexy and explosive as any Judd Apatow comedy, or any Nick Stoller comedy for that matter. Forgetting Sarah Marshall has that classic scene it opens with where Jason Segel is completely naked and arguing with his girlfriend and falling apart, and that's funny and it's shocking and it's provocative and it's sweet. It's all of those things, you know.
And it feels very real.
It feels very real, and that's why it's funny. And I said, I don't want to hold back. It has to be unapologetic. We have to go, pardon the pun, like balls to the wall with this, literally and figuratively. And that was always a priority for me. And luckily, Universal, probably because Judd and Nick have had so much success taking kind of outside the box comedians like me and building movies around them, I think Universal felt a lot of confidence. And I think Universal also saw that the culture now has evolved to a place where people want these stories. To get people to the movie theater, you need to give them something new and fresh. It can't be just a comedy, it has to be an event, and Bros is that.
I don't want any Hollywood bullshit.
Well, I mean, it's so much happened on set.
Yeah, I mean, they got a lot of footage.
Yes.
And we know that there is a reason for a cutting room floor, right? Otherwise you have a 5-hour-long movie.
Yeah.
But I feel like the final cut has a really good balance of everything. Yes, there were a lot of super hilarious moments that didn't make it, but I feel like everything serves its purpose.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the cut I thought was good.
It was good. It flew.
Snappy.
It was good. But there's so much that was didn't make it that we thought was very funny. That we left set and went back to our trailers and laughed. We came back off a break and sat back down in our chairs to do retakes of some stuff, and we laughed and repeated some of the stuff because we were like, this going in here.
Just going in here.
This has to go in here because this is so freaking funny. But I do believe that the final cut of the movie did its justice to what we did.
I think so.
There's plenty that was so funny, and then obviously you have to like cut some stuff along the way. I mean, we all, and I can't remember when they came in to announce that Deborah Messing had shown up. We knew we were all gonna gasp, and collectively. But then everyone was improvising their reaction to Deborah Messing. I think T.S. Madison quite literally said, "Who's Deborah Messing?" Which I think Luke's character says actually in the movie. But I remember saying, "She's my hall pass." And Dot had a funny one, I can't remember. All those aren't in there, but I thoroughly enjoyed that we all had a very personal reaction to Deborah Messing.
Yeah, I mean, just to move on from that, I'd love to talk more about that sequence.
Yeah.
That cameo is like so hilariously bonkers.
The best, yeah.
I love that she was very happy to make fun of herself. Can you speak to what that experience was like filming?
Well, I can't speak for Deborah. I cannot get in her body, and as much as I would want to try to understand her, but I imagine that was gloriously fun for her. I don't know her well enough to answer, other than the fact that she was hilarious, and the idea of taking what I'm sure is her experience sometimes to be some kind of a godmother or a therapist. So that was shot at the same place where we were shooting, so I did watch from the monitors, and they were just take after take of just perfect.
I mean, I can't imagine how many young people are gonna go to the movies and finally kind of see.
I mean, that's so cool. Like,
bananas.
as you said that, I just pictured it in my mind, and I got chills. That's really unbelievable. I mean, it's crazy it took so long, but I'm so glad that we did it in what I hope is the right way.
I remember my older sister going to see Dirty Dancing, and then like the family discussion that happened after, because that movie was so provocative for its time. Dirty Dancing. I hope the exact same thing happens for Bros.
I saw it twice in the movie theater. Dirty Dancing.
T.S., I was so excited to see you in this cast. I loved seeing you in Zola earlier. I loved seeing you on the big screen. Can you speak to kind of creating this character who has all of this, power to her?
Well, usually when trans women are cast in movies and film and television and stuff like that, we're cast to be, prostitutes. We're murdered. Somebody's trying to find out, and I appreciate that, because it does tell the story that is really going on in our community. However, I do like to see us played in a different light, like a board director, some woman with power, making decisions in the world, because that exists as well. And so when I got the role, because I read for everybody's part, I did, and then when I got the part of Angela, I was like, okay, well, she's a woman that knows what she wants, and she's a boss here in the room, and her and Wanda have their little something. I don't know what it is that her and Wanda have. I think they did a bad line together. So. But it was I was really excited to be a part of the movie, especially being T.S. Madison, honey, and all that it encompasses with T.S. Madison.
Is it on?
How
many times has someone said that?
Well, they owe me that.
Is this bitch recorded?
Right, precisely.
And if we don't do this, we're letting the heterosexual terrorists win.
There are trans terrorists too. Caitlyn Jenner.
Luke, if I can pivot to you, CinemaBlend, our audience, we're big on the Hallmark cinematic universe, of which your fans are legion. I was wondering kind of what you were hoping that your fans from those projects will get out of seeing Bros.
Yeah.
And if, I guess, it's any of interest to go back and tell a queer story under that umbrella.
Yeah, for sure. I think that they're gonna get it. I think people are drawn to the Hallmark movies because there is a sort of desert of love stories right now in major, thing. And people go to Hallmark because I think they love watching people fall in love. And I've fallen in love with a lot of really talented, beautiful, straight women. Like Billy Eichner.
I'm the Candace Cameron of Bros.
So I think that they will take a lot from it. I think one of the things that straight audiences are going to take from it, and I know a lot of queer people watch Hallmark as well, but it's a bit of a peek behind the curtain at what it's like for two men to date in New York City in 2022. So I think anybody that's curious about anybody else's lives, which is frankly why we go to movies, to learn about other people's lives, I think they'll absolutely take something from it.
Gay guys are my jam.
Awesome.
Billy, I was very taken by the fact that obviously there's this great love story that's being told, but also the movie's very much kind of taking the piss out of queer people and showing the very unsexy parts of trying to date. I was wondering if you could speak to the importance of that and bringing the Grindr deadpan messages to life. I thought was a hilarious choice.
Yeah, I mean, I made the movie with Judd Apatow and Nick Stoller. They happen to be straight. I happen to be gay. But one thing that bonds us all is that those guys have made some of the funniest movies of the past 20 years. Bridesmaids and 40-Year-Old Virgin, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and the list goes on and on. Knocked Up, Trainwreck. So what bonds us is that we love a great comedy. Our goal was to make it as laugh out loud funny from start to finish as possible. We don't get a lot of comedies like that anymore. I love going to the movie theater and sitting with hundreds of people and laughing. It feels like a concert. It feels fun. It's uplifting. It's comforting. It's just fun. It's like going on a ride, and we don't get that experience anymore. And then beyond making it funny, I really wanted it to be honest. I think we have seen more LGBTQ characters in the past few years popping up in different shows and things, but sometimes I feel that we're drawn in a very one-dimensional way, or the creators are walking on eggshells around what gay life really is, and I didn't want to do that. The first thing I said to Nick Stoller, who I wrote it with and who directed it and who did a wonderful job, is, I don't want to do When Harry Met Sally, but we're throwing in two gay guys instead. That's not how the story would go with two men, not in 2022, certainly. I don't even think those old rules apply to young straight couples anymore. Yeah. And so I wanted it to be honest and authentic. I wanted it to be sexy and romantic and awkward and silly and funny, and just show these two men falling in love in a very charming, relatable, but honest way.
Gay sex was more fun when straight people were uncomfortable with it.
Billy was great.
Billy was amazing. Billy, Billy gave us room and space to be creative. You know, to tell the story of our characters the way that we saw it. And so he was an incredible collaborator as well as director. And I think that is why Nick Stoller and Billy, I think that's what makes them so genius in this project, is that they understood that because we are made, this cast is made up and is a representation of so many of the letters of the LGBTQ community, it's kind of impossible to only have one point of view by a director. And the fact that they collaborated and offered and gave us space for our input, I think that's where a lot of the magic comes from in this movie.
He is, well, I would say two things. One is very collaborative in the sense that I think he wanted all these characters to be fleshed out even more so from everyone's take on their own personal. We always shot what he and Nick had on the page because it was great and gold. But I think the spirit of him was also within himself, because we would be sitting at that table and then it would cut and I would watch Billy, you know, take the actor hat off and put on the, you know, the writer, producer, everything. Right. And he often was, like he was making sure that we were hitting all the right notes, not just with the comedy, but with the messages here and there, and that we were making fun of ourselves, but we loved ourselves, and that's a fine line to find, you know?
Yeah.
So that no one watching this movie is feeling judged, they're just being able to laugh at themselves. But we are having fun.
This happens to be Bisexual Awareness Week, and no one has acknowledged it.
I was very taken with this kind of Greek chorus that y'all had in this, you know, board meeting environment. Can you speak to kind of the dynamic of filming with those scenes and the chemistry the group of you had?
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was naturally fun too. It wasn't forced at all. I think all of us knew that we had a job to do, and that was to make sure that we get our point of view across, because we are talking about sharing our history as LGBTQIA people to the world, and that was the heart and soul and the root of that boardroom. And when you have a group of unapologetic LGBTQ people, you're going to get nothing but laughter anyway, right? And we all mean business. I think that's kind of the fabric of who we are as LGBTQ people in real life, is that we mean business, and we demand respect, and we demand to be heard. And when you bring all of those strong personalities and those strong points of views together at a board table, you get magic, and that's what you get in Bros.
Yes.
Lesbian History Month was in March. Nobody said a goddamn thing. Of course, lesbians get a month and we get a week.
A lot of tension. No, I was kidding. It was, I've said that, well, you sit in a circle. And so we obviously, as a board, we're sitting in a circle. And that means for a pretty long day of shooting, because you're a lot of coverage, you're gonna go all the way around that table and say these things many times, and there's some improv and everything involved. So the dynamic was, you know, you can't get a better dynamic than spending 3 days together in the same room. So you get to know people very well.
Yeah, I mean, how was just kind of the energy of the scenes and the way you guys are interrupting each other? I'm sure there were bits happening and
plenty. Well, Billy I remember when we first started shooting, Billy said, let's just ramp up and be pretty much in the heat of yelling at each other, and then eventually, because he sort of had the first line, he would overtake the whole thing and get the scene started. So we always had energy going into it, which is just kind of fun because you can say whatever you want, which they may or may not use. But yeah, and it was a very collaborative feel. We would totally shoot what was on the page, and then we would improvise, or Billy would come up with something on the fly, throw it in there. So by the end, you had, I'm sure they have there's so much stuff on the floor that will find its life somewhere else.
Happy Pride. Happy Pride! Now I have to go to a Pride party and you're both too old to be in the pool. Please leave.
I got to see the TIFF premiere. It was very, very fun to be in the room. All the queer guys, all the queer journalists in the back, tittering to ourselves.
They had to sit at the back. The queer people had to.
Yeah, it's the only way to keep us grounded.
At least they're letting us in now.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.